or one of them. And this objectifies our fellow human beings to dominate, to manipulate, to control, to influence them, all of which is unseemly, tawdry, sordid, and patently, grossly unfair. And none of us would have this kind of prejudice enacted upon ourselves. So if we're specialists in this, if we're leaders, we know what we have to do and how we have to do it. We must not give up. We cannot afford to give in. There's no surrender in the pursuit of justice. And this session will enlighten all of us for certain, inshallah. I turn it over to the two co-leaders of this webinar, Joshua Yaffe and Miss Haneen. Thank you again and welcome to this webinar. And may all of our consciences and conceptual strength and activism be strengthened as a result.
Thank you, Professor Anthony. We appreciate that. Those are wonderful remarks. Just to give a little better sense of the topic that we're doing today in a little more detail, I'd just like to say Western ideas about race have always been contradictory, inconsistent, and often incoherent, perpetuated by a fiction that there is such a thing as a single universal concept of race, and believing in a fantasy that one population can forever dominate another. Yet the way racism has been applied in society has had a profound impact on people's lives. It's divided families, communities, and societies, relegated whole populations to poverty, servitude, enslavement, injury, and death. Concepts of race in the Arab world have also had a strong impact on people's lives, even if attitudes in the Arab world were more flexible, less dogmatic, or codified than in North America. In the Arab world, there were never the kinds of laws and regulations that became part and parcel of segregation and slavery in North America. The state of Virginia, where I was born, passed a decree saying in 1668 that enslaved Africans converting to Christianity would remain slaves. And in 1691, Virginia passed another ordinance banning interracial marriage. That kind of absolute exclusionary racism, mandated by law and subject to corporal punishment, did not exist in the Arab world, where there was still some degree of personal protection and social mobility for slaves and freed persons. For the Prophet Muhammad, there was no difference between an Arab and a non-Arab, or between a white or a black person. The Quran says very strictly, all people are children of Adam, and Adam was created out of dust. The Islamic faith envisioned an egalitarian society, equality for people, for Muslims, certainly. Yet racial difference and discrimination existed after the death of the Prophet, especially in the madhab that emerged in the 8th and 9th centuries, and they were justified in many parts of the region by the social prestige of owning a slave, or by biblical narratives about the curse of Ham, or by calls for jihad against unbelievers living on the margins of the Islamic Empire. Almost throughout the pre-modern era, skin color was a marker for individual capacity and social